and Mr. Gospel. You are live. A lot of people are watching, and you can kindly inform your viewers that we are on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter at the same time for the benefit of those who are not using Facebook and some are not using YouTube as well. They can use Twitter to view the live update. So the program is in your hand now. You can start the interactive show.
Yeah, all right. Thank you very much, Mr. Danso. Thank you very much to UK Media, UK TV and Media program. We thank our esteemed viewers for coming here every Sunday to talk to hear us talk about issues that are affecting our nation, our party, as well as the country at large, and I mean the world at large. We apologize for not being able to come last weekend because of things that are beyond our control, and we hope one of the other panelists, Mr. Patasedikan, will join us if he has the time. Let me welcome Mr. Goswell. Mr. Goswell, I think today we are on YouTube, we are on Twitter, we are also on Facebook Live, as well as on the UK TV. So thank you very much, Mr. Goswell. Welcome on board.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you back again. Thank you, Mr. Danso. As you have already reiterated, last week we should have been on, but due to circumstances beyond our control, it had to be postponed till today. So to our esteemed viewers, we're happy to have you on today, and we will be discussing the burning issues. Over to you, Kejao.
All right, thanks a lot. Thank you very much, Councillor. Today we want to talk about the burning issues, as Mr. Goswell said. First of all, on our plates, we can choose any order you want, Mr. Goswell. First of all, I think we want to talk about the IEC dragging their feet on the expulsion of Mr. Sonko from the council, Brikama Area Council, BAC. Also, we want to talk about integrity in politics and what it means with the advent of the nude video that showed one of the party leaders, and how we can encourage our leaders and our politicians to have integrity, as well as taking care of themselves when it comes to cyber security and attacks. Another thing we want to talk about is the criminal law part of sedition that is still in our books, and we already have Madi Jobate before the police were trying to charge him, and how our government, the UDP government, will need to do. Even now, we have so much work to do about that. And hopefully, lastly, we want to talk about the amendment bill, the local government amendment bill before Parliament. So I think we will start with the first one, the IEC case, Mr. Goswell. I think it is really a concern to a lot of our listeners that after the initial expulsion of Sirifo Sonko from UDP. He went on the offensive to say that the proper procedure for his removal was not done because he was not consulted. He invoked the natural law of hearing the other party, I guess. But then afterwards, I think what happened was that the UDP went back to the table and then did it properly. And now Mr. Sonko is still saying that he doesn't want to leave. Can you tell our viewers why do you think the IEC is still dragging their feet, or are they really dragging their feet, Mr. Goswell?
Well, do not want to speculate on whether they're dragging their feet. I only hope that perhaps when in a matter of time they will come to realize that the due process has to be applied.
Yeah.
Because if I can remember very well, when the situation about NAD, people joining two political parties, and they went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said you can't belong to two political parties, and as a result, your position as an MP is no longer valid.
Yeah.
Straight away, the Speaker authorized the Clerk of the House to write to the IEC chairman for them to conduct elections. Now, in this case here, it's up to the chief executive and the clerk and the clerk, the town clerk, to write to the IEC to say that by virtue of the Local Government Act, a post has been deemed as vacant. And the fact that there is a lot of years left in that tenure, in other words, it's just done 2 years, there's another 2 years left. There should be by-elections within the shortest possible time. So the law is there. I do not know why that law is not being implemented as we speak. I'm hoping that it is a no escape for the IEC. They've got to conduct elections, or if they don't conduct elections, the UDP are within their rights to take up legal action, because it's in total violation of the electoral laws and the Local Government Amendment Act. So
yeah, absolutely.
That is a no compromise issue. But for now, I don't think I want to jump to conclusion and say they don't. Perhaps we should wait and hear what they're saying, why they're not having elections. And if they're saying they're not having elections for some other reasons, then I expect the UDP legal team to consider seeking redress from the courts. But the seat is vacant, basically. So
Absolutely.
there's no turning back on it. He's been expelled. He cannot say the due process wasn't followed. Well, prior to this one, I was a bit skeptical in the manner which it was done. But given the fact that they applied the rules of natural justice by trying to hear both sides, by inviting him to come to for a meeting, and his decision not to attend gives the UDP cause to consider whether he is part of the UDP anymore or whether he's going to comply with our disciplinary procedures. His reluctance not to comply is definitely a good sign to show that he has no respect for the party rules and regulations. And for that matter, well, I think even saying rule of law is taking it even too high for him, giving a higher bar. The problem is he hasn't respected the due process. You should have come and appear before the disciplinary committee, or whatever they call it, or the central committee, and make your case. He hasn't. He's gone on the offensive. And with the greatest, sadly, because of by virtue of the law that we have, that if you are expelled as a member of a political party of which you were representing in a council, your post is vacant. Absolutely. So it's the law that says that. There's nothing strange about it. It's a law that's been stated as we speak. And there's no turning back about it.
Yeah, thank you very much. And the fact that he has gone on the offensive, I mean, I don't want to, delve into that too much. But you are calling a party. He's calling the UDP party all sorts of names. I mean, and he came on the UDP ticket, and now he's trying to ridicule everybody, the party leader, the spokesperson. I mean, why is he still wearing the UDP shirt, if you like? I mean, he was voted in by the UDP supporters, and I think he should be man enough to go to the electorates to seek for election, because if he is confident, as he is saying, that all the councillors, I think he's saying, 1/3 of the councillors are still backing him. Why can't he just be a man and just go back to the electorates and contest again? I mean,
well, you see, this is the same problem we're having. You see, at the moment we have 8 MPs that have been expelled from UDP, and they're still sitting there at the expense of UDP voters. I think those MPs should have taken the same route and say, you know what, I'm a man of pride. I'm going to resign and we have a by-election. But none of them are ready to do it because they know the stakes are very high against them. So they're ready to enjoy making the denying UDP representatives in parliament. Now we have a situation where we have a chairman who is in the same boat. I believe he's been advised or he's being counseled by someone who's telling him, don't go anywhere, stick with it, fight with it. But it's all part of a learning curve for UDP on who we select the next time as a candidate for the mayoral seat, and how we make sure that the candidate bears in mind that you were elected by virtue of a UDP ticket. He could have gone and said, yes, I don't want to stand as a UDP ticket. I want to stand as an independent. But he stood as an independent, as a UDP candidate. And if he's not complying with party discipline and party ethos, what's the hope for UDP? It's in all respects. I never wanted to say this on open air because initially I had some reservations. But having seen that now they've complied with all the due process, gone through all the systems, all the procedures, I think time is up.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
I used to have sympathy with him, and I'm not ashamed to say it because I felt as if, why do we do this? But when they've asked you to come and make your case, and you're reluctant to do so, and you go on the public media and start ridiculing a whole party, you have to understand that 45,000 people voted for him.
Yeah.
Around 45,000 people voted for him. And they voted for him because he's the UDP candidate. Yeah. And I don't want to go into the specifics. There were so many things that happened during the nomination that I don't want to talk about because it was UDP that did it. And it would be very bad for me to say that about the party that I support dearly. But there were other candidates that we could have selected, and we selected him. And
I think that was democracy. I mean, we as a party, we have to respect democracy.
It's democracy, but is this how you pay your party back? Is this how you show gratitude to the party that's brought you into the political field? Yeah, let's be fair. For Sonko was nothing. No one knew.
He was a camera. No, he was something. He was a cameraman.
no, I wouldn't go that way. See, for Sonko. Yeah. I've never had him at a political rally.
No.
When we were talking about the so-called struggle, we never heard about Silver Sonko, and good for him. Now UDP have made you what you are today, and you're saying you're going to defy UDP on the pretext that you were elected, not realizing that you were the UDP candidate. In other words, you are going to forego the 40,000 that supported you, and you start seeing your individual interests. Now, it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
It looks like he's insulting the electorate, as you put it. I mean, and it's so unfortunate. You talked about the MPs as well. The eight MPs that took the brown envelope. I know we've talked about the brown envelope a number of times here, but and they had fortified themselves. I mean, it was a little bit selfish. We are going to talk about the criminal law of sedition that they should have looked after. But now, right now, I don't want to jump guns, but right now they are also looking at the Local Government Act. Trying to there's a coalition, if you like, of DOI, of mainly DOI, I think PPP and NRP, because those are the ones, and the brown envelope MPs. Even APRC, I think is divided on this one. I saw their MP, one of the lady MPs, calling their law very, very bad law. And I don't know why he would stand for a party that will advocate for bad laws. But do you think the IEC is buying time? And is that really a possibility that they will apply a law that is retrospectively? I mean, thank you.
Well, Sidifo has already been expelled from the party.
Yeah,
his post is vacant, so it cannot be retroactive.
Absolutely.
Now, what I find very unfortunate is that this is a new dispensation. And what we should have been looking at, those 8, the MP for Lower Badibu who moved this motion.
Jawara, yeah.
What I would have expected him to look at is to look at the entire legislation called the Local Government Amendment Act. It's quite unfortunate that with the act that has over 200 sections or clauses, you look at one clause and you say that's what we have to amend. There are so many things we need to amend there. The local government that we had in the PPP era and the local government that we had in the Second Revolution, in the Second Republic, are quite different. There's an issue about autonomy. There's an issue about responsibility. There's an issue about powers. Now, these are things which I would have expected that amendment to consist of. Whilst we talk about amending the Constitution, which we're going through, we should have also started looking at how we can amend the Local Government Act fairly and equitably. Because today, this is the first time we have municipal councils which had UDP and GDC as chairpersons. And this is the first time we're seeing local government trying to do something at the local level. But what you fail to understand is that the autonomy is not there as it should be.
No.
So these are the issues which I expect any honest parliamentarian should have been talking about, rather than talking about somebody who has defied the whip and decided to join another party, or decided to defy the whip and create discord. I think I do not subscribe to what others have been saying. What we are trying to do now is we are trying to decimate political parties.
Weaken them, really.
PPP had a rule. I take you through history. PPP, there was a time when people used to defect to PPP. And PPP made a rule in their central committee saying that once you defect, or you want to defect, if you've been made an independent candidate and you want to defect, you have to resign from your political seat and have an election.
PPP will sack you even if you vote. Because I know they sacked my grandfather when he voted.
I'm coming.
Along with the others.
Keja, what I'm telling you is that I remember when there was a seat in Jara in 1982. There was this guy called Barrow. He won the seat as an independent candidate. He resigned. Going through the elections, he decided that he wanted to join the PPP. He decided to join the PPP, and when they had the by-election, he wasn't selected. And that was a lesson. And that's where the genesis came about, where this APRC, the 1997 constitution, starts saying that if you join, you cannot defect from one political party to another. Now, we went and changed the act it was moved by Samba Jallow, minority MP. But whilst doing that, they never looked at the Local Government Act. They never cared about it. Why care now? Why think about it now? Because when you were changing that legislation, you should have done the same thing.
Absolutely.
But you never did. And the arguments you're putting in saying that it's good for democracy, well, personally, I don't agree. Because what you're doing is you're just going to weaken political parties. And when you weaken political parties, that's the beginning of anarchy.
Absolutely.
Indiscipline and instability.
And dictatorial, dictatorial regime.
Adama Barrow today, unfortunately, Adama Barrow was elected. He came as an independent backed by 7 political parties. So that's a very important thing to bear in mind. So you cannot say you're going to decimate political parties just because you're no longer their favorite son. They have to look at the whole act, sit down and say, right, you know what, we're going to repeal the whole act. There are certain issues that we don't agree with, certain issues then we can sit down and talk about it. It comes on to what I've been saying about this institutional reform that we've had, that we've lost the plot in institutional reforms.
Yeah.
Because the Local Government Act is the same as it is. And the only thing one MP is trying to do is to change that clause so that somebody could not be disciplined. I mean, it's unfortunate.
Absolutely. Yeah, but what do we expect from a brown envelope MP? I mean, Jawara himself had also jumped ship from UDP, to another party. So it looks like they're trying to do everything to satisfy Adama Barrow, and that's why our institutional reform is weak. But my, I mean, we can't expect much from those people. But my disappointment is with the other political parties. I mean, people who, elderly MPs, elderly statesmen, if you like, who have been in the parliament for decades now. People like Doi, Halifa Saleh, and Sidia. I mean, why are they backing, such a thing? And they are saying that, we are trying to why are they trying to weaken in for political parties? I mean, it's obvious that if your political party is not going anywhere, you will be interested in doing that. But why should Adama Barrow? Because this is going to take about 2 years, and after the 2 years, most likely UDP is going to be in the government, and these people are going to be in the opposition. And even if they win one or two seats at the councillor level, don't they think that the table will turn, and then those councillors will also jump to UDP? What do you think their rationale is for promoting such a bad law?
Well, in all fairness, I want us to take Doi out of the equation. It's a democratic vote. They have a right to what they stand for. I mean, that's their own conscience. They've decided to support the bill to be passed. We just have to put up with it and make sure our house is in order. Because the problem is we cannot always be relying on others to fight our own battle. And that's why I wouldn't want me to start saying, oh, I blame them. I don't blame them. I blame ourselves. Because we should have made sure that the candidate we have is a candidate that will be of high standing, moral standing, ready to deliver as required. In a multi-party democracy, you can't always have people to agree with you. Sometimes they've seen it from a different angle.
Their own interest, you mean?
Everybody is seeing it from a different angle. I am seeing, and in all fairness, people are seeing people saying, if you can amend the constitution, why can't you amend the Local Government Act? That's a valid point. That's a valid point. But having said so, you look at the whole act and you say you're going to amend this one, not talking about the most burning issues. Today, Kejau, there are primary schools in the rural areas that could be run by local government.
Even the police and the prisons, as you said last time.
These things could be decentralized, and they could only be decentralized if we have our local government act in order. Now, you people, you call yourself an MP for Lower Badebu, and all you aspire to do is to change this. And the whole motive is to decimate political parties, not giving them, because what it will mean is that there will be no discipline anymore. Somebody will just cross the whip as he wishes to. And you'll forget, because what happened is there was a certain clause in the constitution. I don't know how, either it was in the draft, whereby you can recall your MPs. Apparently, that's no longer in the constitution.
It's not being. It's probably there, but they're not using it anymore.
They're not using it. You can recall your MPs. Now, all those things were there. That was part of the so-called original draft. But somehow, APRC got rid of that act. And that's why we have the situation we have today. So, in the case of the fabulous 8, if I want to call them, with a small f, if we had that legislation, UDP would have said, let's recall them.
Yeah.
And then we recall them, we have by-elections, and off they go.
Mhm.
So these are all scenarios that could have been explored in our
Absolutely.
case. So with regards to how others have voted, especially Doi and the PP, I would not want to tread on their feet on it. It's their democratic right, and I respect them for their stance on it. What I want is for us, for us to convince them why this legislation should not go ahead. Because it looks as if once this legislation goes ahead, for some reason or other, you will have people that will just be indisciplined, will not go by the party line.
Mhm.
And we need the whip system back into our party politics.
Absolutely.
Yes, because they say, yeah, Jame was brutal, it was this. Yes, it was, and I agree that. But the whip system is something which is applied even in Western democracies.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the whip system, then it's just a panacea for chaos.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, going back on what you talked about, what they could change in the Local Government Act. I mean, the mayors, notably Mr. Bensouda, Talib Bensouda, has often lamented about the problem of their hands being tied. I mean, they cannot do anything with local government, with the government, with the central government. And I think the local government act 2002 was supposed to be a decentralizing, legislation that should really give them powers to do things that they are supposed to do. Things like giving them schools to run and making them accountable to the people directly. They know their locality. We could even give them police stations. I mean, police to be running under them. Even the prisons, as you said last time. I mean, do you think it's still a lost cause? Can we tell our MPs to probably have a compromise here with them and tell them, listen, can we look at the whole act? But having said that, I think the problem here is that they are trying to rush this thing through Parliament, so that they are going to. You haven't answered my question about the retrospective. I mean, you had answered it, but I want you to be very open to our people, to tell them, exactly what their fears are. That these people are trying to, I think the IEC is trying to play with time, so that by the time these people's legislation, and it's the same reason why they are not going to amend the whole act. They're just looking at one section, because if they want to amend the whole act, it's going to take a lot of time. Don't you think they're trying to play with time here? And I mean, don't you think the UDP should also look at going to court? Because I think when Yakumba Dete was sacked by Barrow unlawfully, the first thing some of us told her was that go to court. I mean, and she went to court and won. So why can the UDP take a proactive step to go into court? I mean, last week they should have, instead of going to, I mean, it's okay to give press conferences and talk to people and give them warnings. I mean, that's nice. I mean, don't you think UDP is being too nice? Why don't we go get an injunction from the court to ask? I mean, the IEC, the chairman, to do the right thing. What do you think the problem is? Why are we being so nice to everyone?
Well, I don't think it's being nice. It's trying. You got to understand that you cannot take a matter to court until you've exhausted the necessary remedies. And at the moment, I think what they've done, from what I can see, is that they're trying to make sure that they get everything sorted before they think of legal action. Because if you take a legal action, it might end up being thrown out because you haven't complied with the due process. Now, as regards to the sitting down with, you talked about sitting down with the other people, talk about the legislation. Some little bit of history will tell you where all this problem happened. When the 1997 Constitution was introduced, it said within 18 months, Parliament will introduce a legislation for the Local Government Act That was 1997. We did not have a legislation until 2002. And within that interval, the IEC chairman then, Bishop Tilewa Johnson, lost his job for pursuing government to pass the Local Government Act. So the Local Government Act in its present form needed to be properly drafted to take into account the aspirations of the Gambian people. Now, this wasn't done. This is still in legislation, in our statute books. And this is the main problem we're facing today. Because from my reading of the Local Government Act, it even talks about term limits for the mayor.
Yeah.
That was how many times was Yankuba Koli mayor of KMC?
I think it was 2 times.
Yes, and there's 2 terms, yeah? Now, then you look at the other bits that it talks about direct elections.
Yeah.
Thanks to UDP that voted for the law to be amended so that elections should be done directly. UDP went to court in 2000 or 2003, something like that, and lost the case when they wanted Parliament to repeal that law which made the chairman to be elected directly or indirect, to be elected indirectly, I beg your pardon. So all these things have happened in the Local Government Act, which people haven't taken into account. Today, you look at Rohey Malik law, they're talking about the constraints that they're facing because of lack of support from the central government.
Yeah, frustration, yeah.
According to what I am made to believe, there's certain things that central government should devolve to local government.
Yeah.
During Jammeh's time, there were times when what was collected at local government had to go to GRA. You see, all these things were happening. When you talk about autonomy, it's not only for somebody to preside a meeting, as we saw during the PP era, and that's what Samba Fall said in one of his interviews, that the role of a mayor is a ceremonial post. Now, in this case here, it's no longer ceremonial because you have what used to be called town clerks are now called chief executives.
Yeah.
So it's quite a huge task, and you have a lot of responsibilities. You're collecting a lot of revenue, and that revenue, you have to make sure that revenue is used to maximize projects at local level.
But they are not. They're not. I think that's where the problem lies.
But what lies there? They should also be receiving support from central government. We also heard about the trucks that Talib Bensouda purchased on behalf of the local authority, came over and he was asked to pay. He never had a duty waiver.
Exactly.
Now, these are situations where you have to ask yourself, are we trying to suppress someone? And this is the same thing that happened when Pasala Jeng was mayor of Banjul. Now, you don't play politics with mayors just because you're in a different camp. You have to work together for the common good and forget about partisan politics until the next election. The sad thing is that this is what we face at the moment. And this is what someone, with the greatest respect, Sirifo Sonko thinks is doing for the betterment of Birkama Area Council. But it's not, it's far from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to point, just to touch on that point that you raised about the revenue that is being collected and you know the custom payment that he had to do. I mean, the council had to do. I think you know, right now we saw in the figures from the National Assembly that that some of the MPs asked. I think it was Usman Silla of Doi, who asked about what revenues were collected by the local government. But if you look at the figures, it looks like the government, the central government, is using the local government as pots, as revenue pots. I mean, if they collect $100,000, per month, they give them $50,000 to develop themselves, and then the $50,000 goes to the central government. That's what I saw from the figures. I mean, I think that those are problems. Instead of supplementing them, with additional money so that they could look after themselves, and in addition, now they are charging. I think this is a big lesson to our electorate, the Gambian electorates who are going to vote in anybody, that they should look at putting governments in place that is going to reflect, the wishes of the people first, but also the local government. Because if we have UDP as central government, as executive, and we have a councillor, I mean the Brikama area council is on the UDP, that problem will not be there anymore. I mean, because what is going to happen is there will not be any conflict. It's Africa. There is no way that you can expect people like Adama Barrow, who will not even respect their promise to the Gambian electorate, not to fight National Assembly people. But what we expect, as you said, is that our civil servants, we expect our civil servants to be neutral. They are the ones who are dealing with the local authorities. So if, for instance, the local government authority minister is trying to play with them, they should come out and tell him, listen, this is beyond party politics. This is national issue, and our people are suffering. We need the dump issue cleared, and we needed support for Rohey Malik Law to look at the state of the contract that was given to that guy. Who is it, Gajigo? Now it looks like the oversight of responsibility that the council supposed to play on that project is not being there, and the consequences are very clear. Because what happened is that the contract is overpriced, and it's costing the central government so much money now. The first quarter, almost all the overspending that they did was just because of this lack of proper management. What lessons can UDP government learn from all this? And how are we going to make sure we tell our electorates to vote overwhelmingly for UDP, both at National Assembly level, presidential level, as well as local government level? I understand that you are saying that people like Sirifo should never have been selected at the first place. I mean, I think that's in hindsight, and we have learned our lessons. And in going forward, we should put candidates. We should properly assess candidates. How are you going to assess those candidates, Mr. Goswell?
Well, the first thing I will do first is that before I have candidates, I will have to make sure I have a strong law, strong institutions. If you don't have it, then even if you bring in the brightest and the best, he will still maneuver things, and that's what happened in this case. We do not have proper legislation on the local government act by now should have been reviewed. We talked about institutional reform. We talk about system change. These are things that we should have looked at, and we haven't looked at it. And this is where the problem is. If we look at the local government act that PPP left us with, that was worse, because the minister had so much power. The minister could have dissolved a council. The minister could nominate somebody to be a nominated member of the council. Now, credit to APRC, they changed that law. A minister can no longer dissolve a council. Now, expect now, with the Third Republic coming in, for us to have a new dimension and change the law to make sure that, because governance is a huge task. And the more with our country being populated, people are moving to other areas, building homes and all that stuff. Local government will have responsibility with collecting rates, doing the local duties, and for that matter, we can no longer have that pseudo devolution that we had when the local government act came into effect. It has to be looked at, because now you look at an area like in the Combos, the Burusubis, those are new segments, they're new areas. new revenue brought in. Now you look at an area like KMC, it's collecting a lot of revenue because KMC, whether we like it or not, is the largest municipality in the Gambia.
Yeah.
And not only large, economically viable. Because most of the hotels, most of the industries are there, so it can raise a lot of money.
Yeah.
Now, with all that money you're raising, with all that population that you're looking after, if you are not given the tools to manage that municipality, then what's the point of being called a mayor? Or what's the point of being called a councillor? I know they've got this school, one of these schools that they look after, I think the Charles Jow School, Charles Jow Academy, that's run by the local authority. But is that enough?
No.
I would expect by now we should be seeing a library in KMC. For us to sit here and say we got Gambia National Library situated at Regional Pi Road behind Gambia High School, and that's it, full stop, it's a bit disappointing.
Absolutely.
We should have seen a skills center.
A lot of them.
Yes. I mean, we have, in other words, we have all the resources for us to make these councils viable. I mean, you look at today, Rohilo has been talking about the revenue that they used to collect from the National Road Authority billboards. The government took it over. Anything that they think the councils are doing, they take control of it. Now, if you want, and when IMF comes over here and say, oh, you have a large, your expenditure is too high, you can't defend it because the problem is you don't want to have a leaner government.
Yeah.
You can only have a leaner government by decentralizing.
And evolving.
And by decentralizing, you ease the burden on central government and let certain issues be dealt with at local government level.
Absolutely.
This council talks, if you go through the act, it talks about village development committees or ward development committees. These are structures whereby in each ward you have your own committee that will decide on what projects they would want to be implemented in their ward. That's democracy at the grassroots level. But all these facilities are not, or opportunities are not being utilized. If I go to Soldier Town today and say, when did you last meet as the ward development committee? They wouldn't know what to say, or how are you responding to the torrential rainfalls that we're having now in Banjul? What are you doing in the areas of environment and all that stuff? What proposals do you have for the council? They wouldn't know.
Absolutely.
And these are all avenues that they should be using, because it's by there you will know what this ward needs. Like you say, a ward called Canifin, what do we need? And the ward committee will meet and say, yes, we need so and so, and we tell our councillor. Our councillor goes to the main meeting and tells them, say, well, I've been to our people, this is what they need. And that's why we set up these institutions. They were not set up just as a window dressing facility. They were set up for good reasons. And I expect when a UDP government comes in, not only do they reform, but have to make sure that people at the grassroots level have the opportunity and choice to express their opinion on proposals on what they want in their wards.
Absolutely, and the resources as well. As you were saying, right now the VDCs are almost like non-existent, even though they're there. Also, to just to point out that you talked about the act being better than 1997, before 1994, PPP time. But also, still in the same act, we have the minister. The minister cannot dissolve the council, but he still has to approve the nomination of nominated members. So I think it's a lost opportunity that this coalition government was set up for change, real change, and we are failing. I think we have to blame our MPs across the board as well. Thank you.
Well, with regards to what you saw in the PP era, is that anybody could be made a nominated councillor.
Yeah.
But these days, the legislation says there's certain criteria, like you have a youth, people with disability, and all that stuff. There's certain criteria that you have to look at, which is a more of an improvement to what we had on the PP era. Because the PP era, let me make it very clear that if you've been a staunch PP stalwart, you have the chance of being nominated as a councillor, as compared to someone who has the skill, has the expertise, and who has the passion for local government to be made a local government nominated councillor.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't by criteria now, because you have certain criteria. You have to be youth leader and all that stuff. So you have to show your socks out, say, look, I can do it, and that's how they're elected. From what I'm made to understand, that's why you had somebody like Kemu Bojang, who is now a nominated councillor in KMC.
Yeah,
I mean, Kemu Bojang is a household name because of what he does.
Absolutely.
I mean, yes, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Moving on. I think we have spent a lot of time on this one. It was a fruitful discussion. Thanks a lot. Moving on. I want to talk about the integrity in politics. With so many nude videos of our MPs emerging, and lately we have seen that it's sort of addressing the real issue of making sure that our politicians are people with integrity, and they don't go and endanger our national security. Because I think this is a very serious issue when it comes to our politicians opening their zips for people and asking things on videos. I mean, my point earlier on, just before I came on the show, was that since when did Gambians started acting like this? I mean, we have never been known things like this. We were very conservative people across the board, depends on regardless of which religion you come from. Gambians were really, really conservative when it comes to this kind of things. We people were really, really serious about, not even their wives will probably see their private parts. But right now, it's like almost everywhere. And instead of addressing that, I see even our politicians are saying, listen, everybody can make a mistake. Let us give them a pass. We should. I mean, do you think this is a mistake? And do you think we have a duty as a media, for instance, or as a country, to educate our people, especially our politically exposed people? Because these people are really, really important to us. We don't want a president who is going to be blackmailed by some scammer in Benin for opening this one. I mean, I think this is the problem even with Yaya Jammeh. We believe that Yaya Jammeh was blackmailing so many of our people because of nude videos that he had of them. How do you think we can resolve this problem? And do you think, we should just, brush this under the carpet and say it can happen to anybody? Because I have even seen people trying to say, no, these things are Photoshop. I am an IT expert. I'm an engineer. I mean, Mr. Danso thought I was a lawyer. I take offense to that, But do you think that I mean, I have never seen anything, I don't think these things are Photoshop at all. Photoshop is so open and clear. If you send me a Photoshop thing that you think someone is Photoshop, we'll remove the layers and expose, tell them that, listen, just go away, But do you think that we should just brush these things under the carpet? And how can the civil education panels talk about protecting our people? Because here in UK, for instance, we have problems with scammers taking people's credit card with phishing accounts, and they have gone on massive scale or massive advertisement, even on television. They have talked about scammers, or even they have talked about everybody. Don't you think the Gambia government should go on and talk to people regardless of where you are, whether you are a politically exposed person, especially our politically exposed person, you know, telling them to not open their zip for anybody, especially on a camera, you know, and think that it is okay with it. What is your take on all these issues, Mr. Gospel? Thank you.
Kenya, what an interesting topic you raised. Not something I would have loved to associate myself with, because I find it very unfortunate for General Bojang, as he is called. Yeah. And I think so because what happened is, it's something that could happen to any of us in the political field if we don't mind.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Well, I'm coming. I mean, okay. Integrity is something very crucial in party politics, in politics itself. And if you have some immoral skeletons in your cupboard, you need to sort out those before you start entering the political field.
Thank you.
Because immediately you enter the political field, you're no longer yourself. You're everybody's. Because what happened is it's a form of a romance that you have with politics. And your husband or your wife is politics. So your family, whether you like it or not, they will at times have to bear the agony of you being a politician because of so much sacrifice that you have to make. So in that case, integrity is very important. But integrity is something that you build up personally. It's something that from nobody can. Integrity, you can get it. You get the foundation from parents, from your teachers, from your siblings. But at a certain point, you are the master of your own destiny, and you have to make sure that you act wisely in public and make sure that you're not subjected to blackmail. Now, this bit about Bojang's case is something which personally I would have taken it as a pinch of salt. It's just one of these sort of things, but it's attracted a lot of noise. And I feel it's this. We need this integrity. Is not only about politicians, it's about anybody that is in public service. Yeah. Now, me and you in England, the last major government was the government full of sleaze. You had the Alan Clarks, you had so many cases of which, you know, all of them were involved in sleaze and all that stuff. And integrity was the major point, and some of them had to resign at the point. Neil Hamilton, the case of the brown envelopes. So the brown envelope never started in Gambia, it started in England. So you had many other names that I'm trying to figure out. They call John...
the one who went to prison. What's his name again?
Jonathan Aiken, you have Jonathan Aiken, you had what you call the former vice president, the former prime minister, all of them were involved in sleaze. And all of these situations talks about integrity. And integrity, as I said, is a personal thing. But it saddens me because we are a country of religions. Yeah. And our churches and our mosques always be our guiding light as how we should behave. But if you are in public office and you do not behave, you will be exposed. Absolutely. So it should be a lesson. I don't want to comment about Bojang's case to that extreme because I need to have the facts to be satisfied that it was one of a blackmail or is one of which happened. So I don't want to say further about it, and I just want people to respect my position because I do not have the facts. Yeah. I've had his explanation.
Okay, you didn't see the video.
Well, I didn't see the video, and thank God for that. I didn't see the video. I mean, let's be fair. We've had the case where someone was accused of something similar before, and I will not call his name. I will tell you later.
Conte, yeah, it's Conte. Yeah, it's Conte. I'll call that name.
That was an unfortunate one again. I mean, so we have to be very careful of this bit of trying to be moral crusaders. At the end of the day, none of us is perfect in this case. It's something which we in the political field should condemn outright.
Yeah.
Nobody should make capital out of it.
Absolutely.
Because the same thing was some people were trying to do that in the case of Marisol. I mean, yes, she may have something that she's done in the past, which is not substantiated, but people are using it to attack her.
Yeah, no, but nobody wants to hear that anymore. Nobody wants.
No, that's none of our business. You understand?
Yeah, it shouldn't be.
Now, in this case, now Bojang is now a leader of a political party, and unfortunately, there's some compromising photos about him, and people are not happy with it, or people are trying. I would expect UDP to stay away from it, and I'm saying it over this radio, to stay away from it. It's got nothing to do with us. And instead, we should revisit whether solidarity, in the sense that somebody could do a photo shoot of one of our political leaders and post it out. And what we're going to say?
No. We have IT experts who are going to go and say, no, this is scam. And they don't do that.
Yes, but the problem
they don't do that. They take real photos.
But before they start doing it, before they start doing it, let's be careful. Let's not start making capital out of it. Let's condemn it outright that it was wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. We should.
I think as decent politicians or political activists, we should condemn it.
Yeah, and then they did condemn it. I saw Mr. Ibrahim Diba condemning it.
It's a crime.
Outright.
It's a crime. It's a crime. He may not be part of our party, but he has a right in any political party.
Absolutely.
Anything about nudity, which is something sacred and something which is something immoral in our context, for being shown nude photos and all that stuff. I mean, not something that I expect any of my compatriots to be jubilant about and to make capital out of. That is really sick if we do.
Yeah, absolutely. No, but the problem is, the problem is, if I saw the interview that he had with Freedom, and I'm not sure whether it was him or Freedom, but they were trying to pin the blame on UDP at some point. I think that's where the problem lies, because when you read the interview of I don't know whether it's him, because what he's telling them is that don't publish this because it's before the police now, and Freedom said, oh no, we are Freedom, so we're going to publish it. But the allegations there are that Conte, as you call him, the last guy, he's an accountant in the US, and he fought Gambia Democracy Fund, which I was a member of for years, trying to prevent us from collecting money for Gambians to go and sponsor this candidate, this coalition government. So I had a personal problem with him, because he started talking, confusing a lot of people. So when this happened, and he wanted to be a presidential candidate, I think he had some problems with one or two people, members of UDP. But now they're trying to put that together to say that he was critical of UDP. I don't believe that at all. I think that's an outright lie, either from Freedom or from General Bojang. I don't know who is responsible for that.
Well,
but the sick part is, the sicker part is that he went on to say, because he accused the UDP party leader of tribalism, because he was sacked by by Barrow himself, and he's trying to manipulate the facts to say that the Dabo as the foreign minister sacked him. He didn't even understand that as foreign minister you can't appoint or sack an ambassador or deputy ambassador for that matter, or a member of the foreign service. But now he was trying to manipulate that to say, because I came across and I was attacking their party leader, they are trying. I mean, how sick can that be? I mean, that is where UDP people came out also to say, listen, if you come out to allege, karma is real. Karma is real. You cannot come out and throw such serious accusations at people who fought so much for this country, and expect everything to be okay. There must be a problem with it. I mean, General Bojang is my friend, it's my personal friend. We went to Ghana Military Academy together, just two of us. So we were really close, until I left the Gambia, and he still started to, he tried to stay there. But the problem is that, he went on, he was interviewed by, I think, Ket Fatu, or was it Fatu Network? And they were asking him about Yaya Jammeh, and he was like, no, Yaya Jammeh is not a dictator, until the court of law said, it's a dictator. I mean, he had so many baggages that people were not happy with. And some people, came out to jubilate, not jubilate, but they were saying, listen, karma is real. You cannot go out and on people's sponsor, people paid for your training as a military officer. You understand? From Ghana Military Academy up to when he became a general, Gambia government taxpayers paid for it. He served a dictator, and nobody's telling him, why did you serve a dictator? Why are you complacent in this one? And yet you want to defend that same dictatorship, who is really openly tribalist, who had threatened Mandinkas, that he was going to send us back to Mali or wherever we come from. And at the same time, he's accusing our, Lawyer Dabo of certain this kind of things. So I think that it was him who made this political. It was either him or Freedom who made this really political. And now they're trying to shift the blame that this could be UDP supporters. Do you really think that anybody, any sane person should be saying that, Mr. Goswell?
Well, I find it very unfortunate that people want to make associate UDP with this unfortunate incident.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to give it any credence by trying to be on the defense, because I know that it doesn't hold water in any aspects. Yeah. I mean, this is something which we all should condemn outright, so that nobody should be jubilating about it, because it's a sad situation. And therefore, what happened in this case is that we have to be mindful. Bojang today may be our opponent, tomorrow he may be our friend. As they say in politics, there are no permanent friends.
Yeah.
Just imagine what happened. Adama Barrow went all the way and said his father is Usain Odabo. Where's Usain Odabo today? Where is Barrow? The same thing happened. Whoever told you that Dembo Bojang, Dembo by force, will abandon UDP or MPP? So we all have to be very careful of how we deal with these situations, because it does have an impact on us. And us, as being the aspiring future leaders of UDP, we should be putting issues in the right context and not trying to be swayed by emotions. Now, some media outfits deem it fit to use UDP as their punching board, and they think that's the way they can get their audience, and that's how they do things. So anything that you say about UDP, it gives them hits, it gives them money, and they're happy with it. And they will say anything nasty about Usain Odabo and the UDP when it's even wrong. So in this case of General Bojang's case, it was the same ploy that was used just to ridicule UDP. I mean, in myself, I remember during the councillors election, the municipal elections, people were using the municipal elections as an avenue to settle scores with UDP. And some people were selected to contest elections when they were not even ready for it, and they lost. So this is what people are doing now, and we should be ready for it. How do we control situations like this? It's for us to show maturity and decency. What did Usain Odabo say when he came to Manchester? When they go low, we go high.
That's right.
I have been in this crusade for the past 25, coming to 25 years. And I've never had enemies because of your politicalness. Instead, I've had friends. They are part of APRC. Yes.
Really?
And we are friends because I respect your position, your political position, and you respect my political position as well. And if we take that approach up to grassroots level, will make a huge difference. I mean, I know for that there's going to be divisions, there's going to be disagreements, but we need just to show maturity. And I'm begging to our audience, please stay away from this General Bojang fiasco. It makes us look good that we are not into what they say, wahi kacho kacho. You know, we're into the burning issues, and the burning issues are 2021, we should be at State House and nothing else. We're not going to be on State House. We're not going to go to State House if we continue to allow ourselves being distracted by sleaze, brown envelopes, nude photos. In my view, it's all rubbish to tell you about it.
Absolutely, and the tribal insults as well.
How to get 3-course meals, how to pay for their school fees. Tobaski is around the corner. How you can purchase a RAM, the COVID-19 with all the restrictions. These are the issues that we should be talking about. But if we have situations where people are confined to negativity, then we will continue to show a bad picture of this great party. A lot of people sacrifice for this party, and we should not disappoint them with this negativity that we have.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's hard though if someone is attacking you and associating you with certain things. You know, I mean, it's a good advice to our people to continue, you know, going high, you know, higher and higher. And I'm glad most of us are going higher, you know, even if they continue to attack. Yeah. So moving on, I think we have so many bad laws in our system, you know, like sedition and even the local government act that you're talking about. You know, what right now our MPs are engaged on. I'm sorry, I have to bring you back on this topic. Our MPs are engaged in trying to satisfy, you know, Adama Barrow or C4 Sonko. You know, what do you think about the problem with Mahdi Jobate and the IGP? And you know, I think the National Human Rights Commission did a great job of sitting the IGP down and with Mahdi and trying to trash this issue. And you know, we had the civil society organizations also coming out in solidarity with Mahdi. You know, and I've seen so many live videos of Mahdi still attacking the IGP this time, not really talking about the issue that got him into trouble in the first place. But do you think that our MPs, our UDP MPs, for instance, have a duty to try and table these sedition laws into Parliament so that they can change them? You know, I mean, you know, I think there are so many. Some of them are so bad that you know, they stifle freedom of speech. You know, I understand that what Mahdi said was a little bit extreme when he talked about the fact that the security officers were the ones who murder Mr. Jaju at Kanilai, and that and that they were the ones who also murdered the 4 or 5 people at Farababanta, you know. And he also went on to accuse them of being implicit in the murder of the student for over some illicit cannabis. And also, lastly, I think the last bit was about You know, I probably will not be able to remember that because I didn't do the video to support him. I saw so many people were supporting him. But what can you tell our MPs to do, or the whole parliament, for instance? Why should they not be looking at changing these laws? Because, you know, when the government came in, the first things they said was, we are going to make sure that all these bad laws go. And, you know, we've been taking to court, Gambia government have been taking to court so many times. Right now, with Carnegie Minerals, just to digress a little bit, we are supposed to pay about $22 million, you know, right now. And the court is saying, no, we cannot delay this anymore. You have to pay this. And we have spent so much money over bad laws that got us into trouble. Why do you think our government is still, you know, dragging their feet on changing these laws and using them to stifle confidence? And what can we do to change it? Thank you.
Well, Kejao, in next 9 months, we will be celebrating 55 years of independence, or 56 years of independence.
55, yeah.
Yeah, or 56. It was being 55 now, so it's going to 56. Yeah, next 7-8 months. Yeah, and when you see laws like sedition, as a student of history, it hurts me, because sedition was a law which our colonial masters used to punish our political leaders. Kwame Nkrumah went to jail for sedition. Our political activists during the colonial days were arrested for sedition.
Yeah.
During the PP era, the last person that was charged for sedition was Dixon Colley, The Nation, when he wrote an article, Still in Doomsday. And all he did was he talked about the corruption and the lack of awareness, the lack of respect for development in our country. And he was taken to court for sedition, and he was acquitted. Now, some of these laws are out of fashion, discriminatory, and also a mockery to our sovereignty. Because you talk about us being free people. Now, we have what you call criminal libel. That law should be taken off the statute books. Sedition, Yahya Jammeh use it to the extreme.
Yeah.
You do one thing, you charge with sedition. Sam Sarr, Paps Sen, a guy called TV&MEDIA, and many others were charged with sedition just because of the Tafa letter that she wrote to them. So many political opponents have been charged with sedition and went to jail for sedition. It's disturbing that those bad laws are still in our statute books.
Yeah.
And if we say this is a new Gambia, then those are one of the laws that we have to take off from the legislation. If somebody says something that you not agree with, don't use the state. You can take him on a civil suit. Don't abuse your power just to punish somebody. And this is what happened with sedition. As I said, Edward Francis Small, our founding father, when had the same thing. I think even P.S. Njai was charged for sedition.
Francis Small was,
P.S. Njai was charged for sedition. And it's a colonial law. And to have that law there, and it was done deliberately to punish dissent. And we are still saying we are an independent country, we are a republic, and we still have these laws in our statute books. That's what I cannot understand. I mean, it's time for us to repeal those laws. What he said, if they're not happy with it, they could call him and say, look, what you said is quite unfortunate. Could we have a discussion about it? But to take the person, they can call him for question, try to charge him, and then in the end, dropping charges just goes to show that we've lost it. I mean, look at Dr. Amadou Scott end dictatorship in Gambia. And they said that was sedition. And he had to go to jail for it.
Yeah.
That's all he said. Lamin Wajuara, let's take on to the streets. He went to jail for 6 months. There was one who said, oh, this is Yahya Jammeh. It was Yahya Jammeh that gave me this sedition. When are we going to stop having such law in our statute books?
Absolutely.
When are we going to stop having such law? It goes against the fundamental right of freedom of expression. And it doesn't tie in with modern day civilization. Certain laws, colonial masters never put those laws to benefit us. They were done to enslave us. And now we're a free country. We still have those in our books.
Yeah.
All I can say, what a shame.
Yeah,
and I hope UDP does not retain it in the books.
Absolutely. Next year we would not. From year after next, we would not. Yeah, it's unfortunate. But I think the National Health Human Rights Commission, I think they are doing that. They are engaging this, the National Assembly, as they said, the Select Committee, and at the level of the National Assembly as well as the government, they are engaging them, and I hope they continue to engage them, because it's fearful. They cannot go on firefighting this every time people have problems. They go and sit down with the IGP and look at the waste of time that this guy had to endure. He had to report like almost every few days. It's so unfortunate, and we're calling ourselves a coalition government. It is really, 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 really bad. Yeah. Okay. So the last part we want to talk about before general discussion, people have raised some topics, some questions here, but the last part we're talking about is the amendment bill before Parliament, and I think we have talked about it already. But just to close, just to reiterate what we talked about, just to pinpoint it, is that they should overhaul the whole act. And not look at piecemeal things that are going to benefit one person. And you said that the UDP government should in fact take it upon themselves and overhaul it, because I don't think the Constitution has actually touched on the Local Government Act. So I think it's a lost opportunity that. That we cannot amend such an important legislation that is affecting our people. It looks like we as the next government that is coming on will have so many laws in our hands to look at, to amend. It was a lost opportunity for this government to look into it, and these are really, really urgent matters if we really want to develop our country, because we cannot have a local government that is collecting so much revenue, and we're taking half of it away from them, and just giving them back half of it, and yet we tie their hands every time they have a lucrative deal that they can, as you said about the vehicle revenue collection. If anytime you have a good source of income, the central government will come and take it away from them, and leave them without anything. Now, currently, we have our wasteland in Bakote, and it's such a problem that the local government cannot do anything about it. It's such a tragedy that we have people living next door to them, and they cannot have the money to transform this into a modern thing. And now I understand they're looking for other places to see where they can move this wasteland to. I think that's going to be really, really impossible in the Combo St. Mary's. And coming back to the planning bit, because I think it has got to do with planning. I know I'm talking about so many issues here, but we have a big task as a government. That's my point. The UDP that is coming, and I am not sure what advice you will have for our legislators that will be coming in, how we are going to choose those people, and also how they are going to table these things. But it looks like even for 5 years to tackle all these things, it's a big responsibility. So what are you going to advise our next government to tackle first? I mean, is it the local government? Is it the sedition laws? Or do you think we have other important things that we need to look at? Because these are really important legislations that any government that comes should really and is really interested in reforms, in real change, should really look into this thing. So what piece of legislation do you think that our governments can look into? Thank you. New government, I mean.
I think we have tasted the first tier of local government. We've seen it out. What's been our problems? Yeah. We've seen what it was under the APRC, and now we see what the UDP-led councils are doing at the moment. So it shouldn't be any problem to anyone to understand what the issues are. Yeah. I think Rohilo, the guy in LRR, the guy in Basse, Danjo, all of them have given us food for thought on how we should run our local governments. They've gone before the select committees on numerous occasions, and they've raised their concerns as to their constraints. They haven't even done that. They've also gone to the extent of interacting with the people to explain to them what they would have preferred doing and what they can't do now because of the constraints. So I don't think that should be a problem for UDP, because we're seeing all what's happened. We see what Rohilo wanted to achieve. I see what Talib wants to achieve. And we see what is stopping Talib and what is stopping Rohilo. So those are the areas which a UDP government should be looking at and studying, saying, look, our councillors have done extremely well. They could do better. Now, when we're in government, this is what we should do. Sit down and look at the act now and say, look, go through it, give it a very Caesarean approach, go through it from section to section, looking at the current dimension now in our country, because when they did the act, there wasn't a lot of people that you have now in KMC. There's a lot of development in KMC in the areas of industry, hotelier, and other. So what you need to look at, how can we generate revenue from the local authority, and how can we make these authorities being self-autonomous, semi-autonomous. In other words, the government will just give them a bare percentage, like 25 or 30%. And then what the Gambia government, what the local government will give them at least 10% back to the government, and the rest will be used towards developing the local authorities. Because there's a lot they can do at local level with the states, which will ease the burden on the state. Education, sports, there's so many things they can do if they're given that leeway. But if you still want to micromanage them, you're still going to have problems. And the sad thing is, at the end of the day, the people will say, Rohilo defu darafi. Not realizing that it's not Rohilo, it's the government that is trying to suppress her. Yeah. I am seeing somebody like Laiba. I'm sure he had good intentions, but he realized that if he doesn't toe the line with Yaya Jammeh, he'll go nowhere. Yeah. And it was so easy and so cheap, may he so rest in peace, for him to defect from being an independent to be an APRC. Although he never stood for APRC when they had the councillors election, but he was a supporter of Jammeh. And this is and the reason why he did it, my view is because he felt that he cannot be an independent mayor of Banjul when he hasn't got any councillor within his camp and all the councillors were APRC, and for that matter, he had to toe the line. What they tell you, do it. So all of these things have to be looked into so as to make sure that autonomy is in place. What I'm seeing now is the sort of an unnecessary power struggle between central government and local authorities, which is really not necessary. It's not necessary, and it's time that we give way to that sort of petty politics. I mean, we know in the local authority that the central government is Adama Barrow and his cabinet ministers. Adama Barrow and his cabinet ministers have to understand that the people at local level elected Rohi Malik Lowe, Talib Bensouda, Danjo, and the other guy at Lower River, all of them. So those people have to be respected, and those people should not be treated as outcasts. I say, once we start doing that, then we cause political divide, and then it becomes difficult for you to do development. I remember during the PP era when somebody said, well, we are not going to have Nawetan in Serekunda anymore. We are taking our Nawetan to Serekunda East because we voted for an opposition and split the whole Nawetan, making it two Nawetans in what used to be one Serekunda, one united Serekunda. I mean, these are things that we have to move away from. I mean, nation building calls for maturity and it calls for sincerity and self-reliance at times. And as far as I'm concerned, if these tenets are not being complied with, we will always have problems with moving our country forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And the next part we want to talk about, we have so many things. I mean, we have seen so much cross capital.
We want to talk about David Colley.
I think we need to give David Colley a break a little bit. I think he's got so many things going on. But about the Bar Council, you saw the Gambia Bar Council, came out to lend their voice to our concerns, or that you and I were talking about here a number of times about the state of public emergency. The Adama Barrow, seems to I don't know where he got this from. I'm sure no sane lawyer will advise him that he can do this. You declared a state of emergency. After it expired, you also declared another one, and you're saying I'm declaring more and more and more and more. And I was warning you here. I said, and you said, okay, the parliament is not sitting. That's why he is not doing that. But he is now. The parliament is still sitting. But he knows that he cannot declare 21 days. But so he thinks he can go 7 days. I mean, why do you think the Bar Council had to wait for such a long time to tell him, listen, Mr. Barrow, you are breaking the law. You are defying our constitution. You are acting like a dictator. I mean, it is becoming too much. If I think it was, if I may help you there, I think what happened is that, the Bar Council also thought, okay, maybe let's give him a break because the parliament is not sitting. So he is going to come out when the parliament comes. But still, the parliament is sitting, and the big man is still saying, okay, I have a right to do this. Let me do it. And I warn you. I said, this man, if he is testing the water and he gets away with it, he is going to do this until 2022 to make sure that that there's not going to be any elections at all. I mean, why do you think the bar took so long? And as a government, I think what happened is that the MP for Serekunda East, Mr. Halifa Saleh, also waited. Everybody waited until the Bar Council started talking. And then they said, okay, we want to talk to Adama Barrow now. We want him to come into the house. I've seen so many people talking about, the fact that I think Flexdan or somebody and Jundu Drame were all saying, okay, do you think the president, the parliament has a power to call the president in? I mean, is it the president that they should call in? Is it the vice president? And even then, Why should they wait for such a long time to correct such an important issue? What is your take on the Bar Council and the state of emergency and the fact that now Vice President has to come and address the Parliament and answer the question about why Barrow is acting illegally? Thank you.
Well, thank you for bringing up that issue. First and foremost, I think there's what you call time and circumstance. You cannot just act irrational when something happens. You have to gauge yourself properly in order to bear the fruits. You understand?
Okay.
Now, in this case here, I am pretty sure that it was the ideal time to take, because the problem is I cannot see the legality of having state of emergency being extended when Parliament is in session. I can't see I think the whole idea is somebody is misinterpreting the Constitution.
Deliberately.
As far as you can, somebody is misinterpreting the Constitution, as they did in the case of sacking of Yakuba Jaite. And it's time for people to understand that we have so many provisos in the Constitution whereby people can stand up and challenge you on the illegality of your actions.
Yeah.
Now, for once, I will give him credit. He's ruled our country for 22 years. He never declared a state of emergency until when he wanted to extend his term.
He didn't need to.
When he wanted to extend his term, when he lost the elections. Now we have somebody that's making capital out of COVID-19 and thinks that he can extend state of emergency as he thinks fit. Now that's unfortunate, and I welcome the idea that the Bar Council have taken their stance, calling for him to repeal or to reconsider his position. I also support the stance that this MP for Serekunda, Ali Fasada, took, because the whole idea of a state of emergency is that there's certain rights that you will lose out, you understand?
Yeah.
Certain restrictions. And when you look at the photos of late, across the board, I don't know which political party is observing social distancing, complying with the state of emergency rules. What is the point of having state of emergency when you had gatherings that I saw yesterday on Facebook?
Absolutely.
What's the point of having meetings that I see people are so, there's no such thing as social distancing? Now you're having state of emergency where you're depriving the business community to operate the way they should. And you're doing it, in my own view, if I say it very mildly, you do it own view in order to say that your country is fighting COVID-19.
Yeah, just doing something about it.
I only hope it's not a way of trying to generate generosity from international donors to assist you, or when you have problems with not fulfilling your loan commitments, you will say, well, we were going through COVID-19 and this was it. Or when you want to seek for a supplementary budget, you will say, oh, COVID-19. I mean, it's a sad situation, and it's very, in my view, very criminal for a government to be using COVID-19 with state of emergency when there is nothing to show in the Gambia that there's social distancing, that we're taking the right precautions. As I speak, the numbers have started going up. What used to be now is around 67. I don't know how many people. I only hope it hasn't increased since then. It should be a worry for all of us, because the Gambia is a very poor country, and the Gambia relies on assistance from abroad. And what we're seeing now is that this state of emergency, is it being done for political reasons, for economic reasons? I haven't seen the health factor being considered. I haven't seen the health factor. Taxi drivers were complaining about
they're on strike.
The taxi drivers went on strike. That says a lot. I mean, people are struggling now because of the so-called state of emergency. Why set up a state of emergency when you're not going to put in measures in place? I mean, it's a question for us to look into. And I welcome the idea that this is not a partisan issue, that all of us should look at it from a national issue. So I expect the UDP parliamentarians to look at it from a national issue and question the veracity of having a state of emergency and having it in a manner which is totally unconstitutional. Because you cannot be just giving yourself 7 days consistently. After 7 days, you've got to go to the next place. After that, you go to 45. And then you cannot, because this is the problem they had. When the bill was refused in Parliament, they could have said, okay, we're not giving you 45 days, we'll give you 21 days. But they went to Parliament with the arrogance, thinking that the 45 days, they will get it. And they never got it. And they made no attempt to repeal it. And to add insult to injury, 2 weeks ago, they made an announcement that they were going to apply for a state of emergency through Parliament. And on the 11th hour, it was cancelled. So it looks as if they were more than happy to bypass Parliament and use these 7 days as they keep coming. As it keeps coming, 7 days, 7 days. There must be a stop.
Parliament goes.
Yes, yeah.
So they were looking at like until Parliament goes, and then we can start over with 21 days. But then some of our MPs, notably our ace, our ace in the our ace in the Parliament, Yakumba Jaita is calling for an impeachment of Barrow. I mean, I think I support that, because if the president is deliberately misleading the government, the people, because I think this is kind of misleading. I think what he's trying to do is that to show the people, oh, I'm the one who's doing the job. I'm the one who's trying to protect you. All the other MPs, or everybody who is trying to question my way of doing this is not trying to protect you. Because I've seen even PVP MPs like Tuma, is it Tuma? Is it Tumani? Is it Tumani? Is it Toma?
Tuma,
yeah, okay, that's the name for Tuma. Okay, she was saying that okay, we are with the government here, we are with the country, you are with us or without, against us. I mean, I think those are the problems. He is playing, politics with this COVID-19, and I remember that's the first thing you warned us about, that nobody should play politics, with COVID-19, and right now we have seen, that it is going up, as you said. We are letting most of our COVID-19 issues came from Senegal, and also on the Sabina. I understand we have so many Gambians stuck in the Gambia and they want to get out. But I don't think that, and some other people Gambians are stuck outside and they want to come into the country. Well, I think the problem is that, even if the air flight is coming, the flight is coming, it should come empty and take these people away, because right now we have so many. So do you think the impeachment outcry is justified? And will you support it? I support it. Thank you.
Well, I mean, impeachment is a long process. It would be, I would love to see what it will take, what form it will take in the Gambia. It will be a unique one. It will be the first time I've heard of an African president being impeached. But it's a long process, because we might even get it wrong, because we don't have the overwhelming majority to succeed in an impeachment, as we saw in the case of Donald Trump in America. When they tried to impeach him, they didn't succeed. I mean, impeachment is nice to raise those ideas in his ears, to say, look, we can impeach you, but do we have the political support in Parliament to succeed with it? But the mere fact that she has raised it must raise eyebrows within central government, to say that this parliament, they're not wasting time to charge you for violating the constitution.
Absolutely.
So it's a good idea raising it, but whether it will be sustainable in parliament, given the current voting pattern, I doubt it.
Yeah.
Because it's a two-thirds, and we won't have two-thirds. And secondly, it has to go through a motion first. You understand? It has to go to a motion first. And after the motion, then you start the impeachment proceedings. So it's a two-tier. You need to have a first vote, and then you have a second vote. You see? So when you have the first vote as to impeachment proceedings to start, then you have to go through the so-called parliamentary judicial function. And that's where the problem lies. Yes. I cannot see this current 53 or 56 parliamentarians, all of them agreeing that he should be impeached. No way. And I wouldn't be surprised that there will be some UDP MPs that will say, no, we don't have to impeach him. But the mere fact that Yakumba has raised the issue is a good point. Just to alert him that, look, we know what the procedures are, and nothing will stop us from attempting to implement those procedures against you.
Yeah, I think that's important. That's important, so that I think those are the things that he understands. But what about the just to the last point on this, what about the fact that the vice president has to come and answer for him? Why can't he come and face the parliamentarians? And as it happens here, in UK we have a very rich democracy. I must say, we have parliament. You have the prime minister's correction time, which is really, really important. Even not only in constitutional law, but as part of the politics, everyday politics. People look up to parliament, questioning the opposition, mainly questioning the prime minister on the things that he did. I mean, I understand we don't have a parliamentary democracy, and it was a lost opportunity as far as I'm concerned, that we don't have a parliamentary democracy in our country, and as we had before the 1994 1997 constitution. It would have been really, really nice for our for our MPs to come from our ministers, to come from our MPs, and our government, our president, coming to answer the questions about how he's running the government. Because if we had the president's correction time, if you like, and he comes there almost every other day to talk about the decisions he takes, he probably wouldn't have taken these decisions like this. Don't you think it's about time we bring something similar? I mean, they have called the vice president. Do you think, because these are the questions that people like Jundu were asking, and Felix Dan, they are saying, listen, is it legal to call a vice president to come in to answer for a president's action? And can he adequately address them? And is it possible to have a government that is consistently coming in almost every other day to answer questions, instead of sending in ministers? One minister will come today and talk about his things. Why don't we have the head of the government himself coming in to talk to our people about these issues? And do you think that the UDP government should probably be sending in Ousainou Darboe as president of the Gambia, instead of his vice president every time we have problems? Thank you.
Right. The first thing I want to say is that you've made response to the British system. The British system is a parliamentary democracy.
Yeah.
And you have the Queen is the head of state.
Yeah.
The Prime Minister is the head of government.
Mm-hmm.
So the parliamentary democracy in England is that you cannot be a prime minister unless you become a parliamentarian.
Yeah.
And because you become a parliamentarian, you could be asked any question in Parliament.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, right. Now, if memory serves you right, the 1970 Constitution said the Vice President is the leader of government business. And what used to happen is that if there's any issue about, apart from Sadauda coming to Parliament and gives his annual state opening of Parliament speech, any issue about concerning the presidency questions has to be answered by Bibi Dabo. Now, the 1997 Constitution is a bit silent. And what you and me know that it's a convention that the deputy will always speak on behalf of the president. Adama Barrow is only allowed to come and give a speech in Parliament. Understand? Now, the vice president, can answer questions on his behalf. I see nothing wrong with that. Because the president has a limit. And what happens is you got to understand that the vice president at some times may be asked to has some ministerial responsibilities, which means that she should be coming to Parliament for questioning. So for me, I don't think that's what is required is for Aissatou Touré to come to Parliament and explain why Adama Barrow has decided to extend state of emergency by 7 days. So personally and legally, I think that responsibility should be with the vice president. Until we repeal our constitution, he's been let off. Unless someone thinks otherwise, but that's the normal situation. I know in South Africa, Zuma has been called on few occasions, but it all depends on what the constitutional framework is and what we have now and what we're going to have most likely when there is a referendum and hopefully the constitution of 2022 being adopted. So hopefully it might change. But from what I am reading, that is not in the proposals. This is an ideal moment for parliamentarians to make sure that when they're considering the draft constitution, look into that clause whereby the president might come over and answer questions, not only coming in and give them speeches, which we see on a regular basis, on a yearly basis, if I say so.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the day that we want to ask Adama Barrow to come and answer these people is the day that he is going to feign so many other sicknesses that he probably don't want to see.
I'm not that.
I mean, unless he wants to speak in Mandinka or
no, but the problem is no, but the problem is it's a question of we have to have strong institutions. And we have an opportunity that if we're so adamant that we want Adama Barrow or Usain Odabo or Halifa Saleh, if any of them become presidents, then we have to make sure that the constitution, the draft constitution, makes provision for that. But I looked at the draft, I don't think that proviso is available. And if they're so adamant about it, thinking that having Aissatou Touré to come and speak about why state of emergency was extended, then that's an opportunity for them. The other thing you got to bear in mind is that there's what you call collective responsibility. So I believe when Adam Barrow was deciding extension of the state of emergency, it would have been something that we discussed in cabinet. So any cabinet minister should be competent enough to come in and explain why they extended it.
Yeah, especially Minister of Attorney General and Vice President. You're right.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's been a long hour now. We've almost probably have about 5 minutes or so to 9 o'clock, and we probably should wrap up then, since tomorrow is work. Lately we have seen so many cross-carpeting in to our party, for instance, and I think that's a good thing. I mean, we should encourage it. I think you've probably seen the number of people joining on social media, especially from my area, Dipakunda, Serekunda East area, and especially from Nyamina.
I thought you were from Nyamina. Huh?
Yeah, I mean, I'm from Nyamina, of course, but I lived in Dipakunda.
Dipakunda.
Yeah. I've lived in Banjul, with Antimoro Gibbs, and then afterwards,
I know.
Then afterwards with Tipakunda, so I live in the same compound with Kumba Jaite. So it's probably my little sister.
So you still live in Jaite Kunda then?
Yeah, Kunda, that's right. Yeah,
I know that very well. Yes.
Yeah. So but we've seen so many cross-carpeting, even in Nyamina. We're doing a great job there. We're bringing so many people on board. People who are really, really voting for who want to vote for UDP. But because of small political problems, they are trying to, support the other candidate. They were trying to support the other candidate and still maintain the thing. But then we have seen so many of this happening now. What do you think the trend is, and how can we make it, a higher tsunami, so that I know if people cross carpet, some other party members will be really happy. They are really sad, and they come out and attack our people. Some of them will say, "Oh, even if one person is joining, you come and announce it." I mean, those people are really prominent people joining. How do you think? Why do you think our party is attracting so many people right now? And how do you think we can maintain the momentum? Just to close this talk. Thank you.
Well, as I said, if UDP focuses on the burning issues, we will not have any problems. The unnecessary bickering on social media, the amount of negativity, the level of profanity, the level of insults, and the intolerance that some of these people do, which I want to believe they are not a true UDP supporter. Because if you are a true UDP supporter, you will not associate yourself with such gutter politics.
No, I think they get, to be fair to them, they get provoked most of the time.
Well, I mean, I'm
provoked when I joined.
I'm coming.
I got provoked when I joined from and then I could have reacted, but it's maturity. I mean, those people, most of those are. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
Kejao, social media hasn't got any regulations.
No.
Any Tom, Dick, and Harry can come and say I'm UDP and start insulting people. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Anybody can come and say I'm Doi and start insulting people.
Yeah, absolutely.
UDP supporter will never do that. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Yes, we are decent people, unlike what we say. Yeah. And a true UDP supporter is always known for law abiding.
Yeah.
If you follow Usain Odabo's political career, how many times has Usain Odabo been provoked or his supporters been provoked? And he said, look, I don't want you people to break the law or to violate the law of this country. How many times have they tried to ambush us? How many times have they tried to abuse us? And what we've done, we've maintained our stance. Yeah. Now, this is what UDP was about, and this is what UDP will be. And for the sincere supporters that are following us, they should maintain that ethos.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm not paying your bill on Facebook, but just bear in mind when you say you're a member of a political party, don't tarnish the image of that political party by insulting them.
Absolutely.
I mean, I have, as I said, initially. I have friends from all political spectrum, from even Gambia, GPDP. I mean, the leader was my class. He was my classmate. Henry Gomez was my classmate. I mean, my party was my senior St. Augustine. So we know each other everywhere. So, but it doesn't mean that I should have this gutter politics. We need to take it out of us, out of our system. We need to be tolerant. Once we're tolerant, people will come and take us one. And what you see now is that they've seen the good side of UDP and people are joining us. So it's not bad. The other thing we have to do is we should not be complacent. Because this is an incumbency. The other things I wouldn't want to say on the forum here, that is for UDP exclusive. And that will tell you that we cannot be complacent.
Yeah, absolutely.
2021, there were so many factors why Barrow won in 2016. And those factors are not available in 2020 or 2021. You understand? So we have to be very careful that it's a long fight. But I can tell you something. The future is bright for the United Democratic Party.
Inshallah. And God willing, yeah. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you. And I agree with that absolutely. Yeah, so I mean we can close the program now. It's 9 o'clock. It was great. And you know, we hope we see our viewers tomorrow. I mean next week, Sunday, at the same time. That's 6 o'clock UK time. I apologize to them because it was my mistake. And then after I posted it, I went to sleep. So, you know, you know, we really are grateful to our viewers. I mean, you know, when we are doing the program, we rarely have a lot of viewers. But afterwards, we have hit, you know, 10,000 marks and 12,000 marks. And that's incredible, you know. I mean, even on our fourth day, we had hit about 6,000 to 7,000 marks. So that's really incredible. And we are grateful to our viewers first. And to the platform that give us the opportunity. I understand that even the executive in the Gambia is really keen about our programs and you know, and they are really encouraging us, you know, and we saw that when we couldn't make it last weekend, you know, many of them came to say that, listen, you know, what happened, we are looking forward to this show. It's really important, it's really educative, you know, and you know, we are grateful to you, Mr. Goswell, you know, for your time, for your benefit of experience, you know, not only in politics, in you know, in law, as well as in, you know, in living in the diaspora and fighting in the struggle for over 25 years. You know, so thank you very much once again, and I give you the last word, Mr. Goswell. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Keja, for those nice words. I think you've oversold me now, and and I think it's more of a passion that I've built up, and I have to be grateful to you because you were the one that came and said we should have a program. Our program is not in competition with any other UDP radios. Our program is just to enhance what they are doing and to give it more grease, more flavor, so that people will see a diverse opinion on how things are run. Whatever we say about the leadership, we do not say it out of spite. We say it because we mean well for them. And to our viewers that are listening to us, continue to be tolerant.
Absolutely.
For 2021 is one which we cannot lose. Good night, and see you next week. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. See you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Danso. I think the floor is yours now. You can take over. Okay, guys. Bye-bye.